Kawhi Leonard has officially been traded to the Toronto Raptors. You know, I did promise that if Kawhi Leonard got traded to the Raptors, I would spend the entire show just laughing. I said I'd spend the entire hour laughing. Well, I was told I'm not allowed to do that, so I'm not going to do that, but it is still unbelievably funny that Kawhi Leonard, who wanted to go to the Lakers, who might want him to go to the Clippers, who had turned down the 76ers and the Celtics saying, no, I'm not interested in them. No. Kawhi Leonard ended up getting traded to another country. He got traded to Toronto. He got kicked out of the United States of America. This is what happens when you piss off Greg Popovich. He was never going to get what he wanted. Did people really think that Greg Popovich was going to trade Kawhi Leonard to the Lakers? Really? Did we really believe that that was going to happen? It was so unlikely, and I'm happy that didn't end up happening because Greg Popovich has handled this situation with so much class, and we'll get to some winners and losers later. But yeah, as we see in the comment section from Mason too, we got a question for him coming in later. He got deported. Not literally, because I know that obviously deported in today's day and age is a little bit more of a pointed term, but yeah, he literally got sent to another country, and those Decembers and Januaries, yeah, they're not great in the city of Toronto. It's quite cold, quite different than Los Angeles. I was in LA over this past January. Or 2 Januaries ago, I should say. Wow, it's been 2 years. Yeah, it's quite warm in December in Los Angeles. So this is not what Kawhi Leonard expected, and he seems a little bit upset about it. Kind of. We're not really sure. They had a conversation, and it seems a little bit positive. But let me know what you guys think. Are the Raptors a legit title contender with Kawhi Leonard? I am not convinced. I think that this team is good. I think it gives them a shot at a title, but there's a difference between having a chance of winning one and being a legitimate title contender. I don't think this makes them the best or second best team in the East. I still think that they're behind the 76ers a little bit. I'll give the Raptors the number 2 seed in my Eastern rankings, which we'll also get to later, but I just don't know if they're a legit title contender. I'd say no. But we talked about the Kawhi trade and, you know, kind of what it looked like from a value standpoint. Let's go back to the trade and let's break it down from an asset standpoint and what the Raptors and Spurs kind of gave back to each other. So the Raptors not only got Kawhi Leonard, they also got the expiring contract of Danny Green, which is a great get for the Raptors. As many shooters as they can get on the outside. Nick Nurse loves running a three-point based offense, and Danny Green is the perfect addition into that. Kawhi Leonard is also a very good three-point shooter as well. But for what the Spurs got back for Kawhi Leonard, look, I know that people look at DeMar DeRozan and they question it instantly. I understand that, but look, DeMar DeRozan was second team All-NBA this past season. I know that he totally failed in the playoffs. I get it. He was terrible in the postseason this year. But second team All-NBA is nothing to scoff at. This dude's been averaging 20 points per game for the past 5 years. He's been an All-Star for the past 5 years. You can make an argument that DeMar DeRozan, at least in the regular season, is one of the 15 to 20 best players in all of basketball. So the Raptors, for Kawhi Leonard, the Spurs, for Kawhi Leonard, who they were going to have to give up anyway, end up getting DeMar DeRozan, a top 20 at least NBA player, a very nice piece in Jakob Poeltl, and then a first-round pick, which they will most likely end up getting, because I think the Raptors are easily going to be one of the top 20, or I guess one of the top 10 teams in the NBA this upcoming season. So they get that first-round pick, they get a multi-time All-Star and someone who's been an All-NBA player multiple times, and a nice young player in Jakob Poeltl. The Spurs got a great package for Kawhi Leonard, regardless of what anyone else is telling you. I'm telling you this right now. They did not get robbed. It was not a steal. This was a very fair trade overall. I think the Spurs got great value, and I think the Raptors gave up fair value. This is a fair trade, and that is okay for both sides. And look, you can compare it to some other superstar trades that we've had over the past couple years. Remember the Paul George trade? Victor Oladipo, sure, he wasn't the player that we thought that he was, or at the time at least, but they also got Sabonis. So they get certifiable All-Star, at least now, plus another good young player. The first-round pick, obviously not included, but I think the Paul George situation and this situation is much, much different. So compared to that trade, again, the Spurs got some good value for Kawhi Leonard. You look at the Jimmy Butler trade, which as we get more and more into this is seeming like the Timberwolves got absolutely dominated. They gave up they gave up Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, and the pick that ended up becoming Lauri Markkanen for Jimmy Butler and a first-round pick. So again, you can see where the trade value shifted. By the way, these are all stars who asked for trades. Paul George wanted to trade. Jimmy Butler wanted to trade. Kawhi Leonard wanted to trade. And now we also have the Kyrie Irving trade, which I will point out again is the worst trade to happen in the NBA since the Brooklyn Nets trade. This was such a bad deal. I understand that the Cavs are just trying to get the most they could have for Kyrie Irving. But at the end of the day, the Cleveland Cavaliers ended up trading Kyrie Irving, now that Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder are gone, for Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, Rodney Hood, and Colin Sexton for Kyrie Irving. Not great. Not a very good return for one of the best point guards in the NBA. But again, you compare it to the trade that the Raptors and the Spurs just did. I think the Spurs got fair value, and I think the Raptors gave up good value as well for a guy of Kawhi Leonard's stature. I'm fine with it. I think it's a decent, even deal on both sides. And again, it does correspond with a lot of deals that we've seen in the past. But let's take a look at the Raptors lineup with Kawhi Leonard now. And my first instinct when I say this, boy oh boy, this team is going to play some killer defense next year. Kyle Lowry, one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. Also, mind you, over the past 3 years, he is top 10 in wins above replacement. So people need to stop underrating Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry has been one of the best players in basketball over the past 3 to 4 years. OG Anunoby is going to slot in perfectly to that number 2 guard spot. He could also play a little wing as well. Kawhi Leonard obviously starting there at the 3. Those are 3 fantastic defenders on the wing. If they want a chance to beat the Celtics, that's what you got to do. You got to get people who can defend the wing. Serge Ibaka and Jonas Valanciunas down low, and then a quality bench there with Danny Green in the middle. And then you look at the Spurs lineup here. It remains to be seen whether or not Patty Mills ends up starting over. I think Murray will end up starting along with DeMar DeRozan. They could also start Rudy Gay. Maybe Bellinelli get some starts here and there. It really does depend on what happens in the preseason and who ends up being healthy when the season comes around. But Patty Mills, Murray, DeRozan, Gasol, and Aldridge would be my choice for a starting 5 right now. Here's an interesting question. Who's the better team? Are the Raptors or the Spurs better? Now, I know obviously they're in different conferences, so they won't be playing each other that much. Who's better? Are the Raptors better than the Spurs or the Spurs better than the Raptors? These two teams are actually quite even. And I think that their records are going to be unbelievably similar next year. I think we could see them be within a couple games of each other when the season ends, regardless of what conference they end up being in. The teams are very similar. They're very structured, or they're structured in interesting ways. The way that they play basketball is on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. The Raptors are all about the three-point ball. The Spurs are a playmaking and pass-based offense. So they do very different things, but the overall talent that they have is quite equivalent. So I think the Spurs and the Raptors will end up having similar records this year, but let me know in the comment section who you guys think is better. So Kawhi Leonard is a member of the Toronto Raptors now. So now we really got to break down how this changes the entire NBA. And let's start with the Eastern Conference, as obviously Kawhi is going to the Raptors. Here's some updated Eastern Conference rankings in terms of who can end up winning the East. The Celtics are still far, far and away the favorite to win the East. Minus 125. The Celtics are still my choice to win the East. Their bench at this point could still win the East. I still think they are far and away the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they're going to win the East. The interesting thing is that after the after the Celtics, it's the 76ers and the Raptors. The Raptors still listed there at plus 400 to win the East behind the 76ers. I think that's the right way to do it. I think that's fair. I know that the Raptors got Kawhi, but guys, we haven't seen Kawhi Leonard play real basketball in almost a full calendar year now. He played 9 games last year. We didn't really see Kawhi Leonard fully healthy. So we don't know what we're getting with Kawhi. I mean, when he got injured, sure, he was one of the 5 best players in basketball. You can make an argument that he was the 2nd best player in the sport behind LeBron. I mean, remember, at peak Kawhi a couple years ago, look, he made first team All-NBA over Kevin Durant. The 2 forwards on the All-NBA team were LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard. You could have made an argument that Kawhi was the 2nd best player in the sport. We don't know if he's ever going to be like that again. So it remains to be seen how good the Raptors are going to be this year. And if you compare their lineup to the other teams in the East, I mean, let's start with the Celtics. it ain't better than the Celtics. The Raptors do not have as good of a lineup as the Celtics do. The Celtics starting five is better. The Celtics bench is better. They have a better coach. They have a better front office all around. The Celtics are a better team right now than the Toronto Raptors, and I don't see that changing next year or the year after that. The 76ers, though, you can ask a legitimate question over who is better, the 76ers or the Raptors, because I think it's a lot closer than people are going to give it credit for. I like what the Raptors are bringing in. They still have Kyle Lowry. If Kawhi Leonard is 90% of the player he used to be, that is still a top 20 player in the NBA. Maybe not top 5 anymore, but still one of the best players in basketball. I think Pau Gasol, along with LaMarcus Aldridge, is a great counter down low to Joel Embiid and Dario Saric. Or excuse me, I should say, for the Raptors, Serge Ibaka and Jonas Valanciunas are a good matchup down low for the 76ers. So I still think the Raptors have a better roster than the 76ers, but I think the Sixers will win more games just due to the continuity that they have on the team. And then the Pacers, of course, my number 4 team in the East. Collison, Oladipo, Bogdanovic, Thad Young, along with Miles Turner. They drafted Aaron Holiday and have Tyreek Evans. So this is a very good Pacers team. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the NBA this year. I know we talk a lot about how much better the Western Conference is than the East, but the top 4 teams in the East are nothing to scoff at. The Celtics, the Raptors, the 76ers, and the Pacers are 4 very, very good basketball teams. It's so funny. We talk about how the West is so dominant. Look, the Rockets are missing a lot of people on the wing. They lost Trevor Ariza and they lost Luke Mbah a Moute. Are the Celtics not the second best team in basketball right now on paper? So the second best team in basketball is in the East, along with Kawhi Leonard, along with the 76ers, along with the Pacers, Giannis with Mike Budenholzer as his coach, the Wizards just got Dwight Howard, and the Pistons are retooling with the guy who just won Coach of the Year. I don't think the East is as weak and as pathetic as people are making it out to be. And as you go through my rankings here, you see the bottom half of the East there with the Bulls, the Nets, the Hornets, the Hawks, and the Magic. I'm not saying the East is better, but I think we need to give the East a little bit more consideration than we're currently giving it. This is a very good conference with a lot of very good players and very consistent and all-around good teams. The Pacers, again, like I said before, brought the Cavaliers with LeBron James to 7 games last year, were great all season long, have added a bunch of really good pieces this offseason, and have a great head coach. Who says the Pacers couldn't end up in the Eastern Conference Finals this year? Still very possible. So I still think the Kawhi coming to the East makes the conference better. I think people need to start giving this team a little bit more consideration. Let's jump to the Western Conference now and talk about what we're going to be looking for with the San Antonio Spurs. So obviously the Golden State Warriors are going to win the West. They're still without a question the best team in the Western Conference. They're going to win the West. They're probably going to win the NBA Finals. The Spurs are not better at all than the Golden State Warriors. The Houston Rockets, though, we need to talk about how good or bad this team is going to be next year, because they are one Chris Paul, hamstring injury away from having James Harden and Clint Capella versus the entire Western Conference. I mean, I know that Mike D'Antoni has a really good offensive system, and I know that the Rockets were fantastic last year, but a lot of the reasons they were good is because they had so many people who could make their own shot off the dribble and had a lot of different playmaking abilities and were so versatile. They lost a lot of those versatile pieces this offseason in Trevor Ariza and Luke Mbah a Moute. I know they brought in James Ennis, and I know they also have Michael Carter-Williams, but I don't really understand how he helps at all. The Rockets are going to have a very interesting season because I don't think that Chris Paul, James Harden, and Clint Capella is enough at this point to make a legitimate run at an NBA Finals. It wasn't enough last year, and I don't think it'll be enough this year. So we also have the Los Angeles Lakers. Obviously, they added LeBron James, and with Kawhi Leonard in Toronto, this means that officially, I've heard some other trade rumors around the NBA. I don't think they're going to happen. The Lakers at this point are going to keep all the kids together. They're going to keep Brandon Ingram. They'll keep Lonzo Ball. They'll keep Kyle Kuzma. And they'll keep Josh Hart. Very much seems like they want the kids to play with LeBron and actually get a shot at the playoffs with this current roster, which I don't hate. I think that's a good decision. But I don't know for you guys, who is going to win the Western Conference? Probably going to be the Warriors, right? I don't really think there's another option. Is there another option? Lakers? No. Rockets? No. It's going to be the Warriors. The Warriors are going to win the West. Let me know in the comment section who you guys think is going to win the Western Conference. I certainly have the Warriors at number 1. I don't really think there's any other competition. I do still have the Rockets at 2. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games this year. But as we saw in the NBA last year, how much did the regular season really matter? Lakers are number 3 for me. I put the Spurs at number 4 ahead of the Jazz. And I'm the biggest Jazz fan on the planet simply because I think a Spurs team without distractions, adding DeMar DeRozan alongside of another year with all the players they have, they cut out some of the fat on this team as well. It's a very, very good roster going into next year. Greg Popovich only has a couple years left of coaching. The dude is gunning for a title. And with getting DeMar DeRozan, they are still a title contender going into next year. As long as Greg Popovich is there with elite players like DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, they're going to be a force. Look, guys, LMA and DeMar DeRozan were both all-NBA players last year. There are only 15 of those guys in all of basketball, and the Spurs have 2 of them. That's good enough to make a run at any sort of NBA Finals. So I have the Spurs there at number 4 ahead of the Jazz at 5, and then the rest of my Western Conference rankings. We have the Thunder at 6. I know, blasphemous. They brought back Paul George, and they didn't improve at all this offseason except getting back a guy that they already had. Number 7, the Portland Trail Blazers. 8, I got the T-Wolves, though I can be convinced that the Nuggets will make the playoffs over the Timberwolves. I think I'll probably end up switching that and having the Nuggets in the playoffs, but as of right now, I'll give it to the T-Wolves. I love Jimmy Butler, and I think that overall they have more top-end talent. The Pelicans at number 10 are going to miss the playoffs. The Clippers, the Suns, the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, and the Kings make up the rest of my Western Conference. Look, people, this is going to be a difficult Western Conference for any team. No team is just going to roll through this conference this year. I mean, look, it's going to be a grind. When even the Kings at the 15 seed are going to be a tough out this year with Bagley and Fox and Buddy Hield, Bogdanovich, along with someone like a Willie Cauley-Stein, and then you add a Harry Giles and a Zach Randolph too. Look, the Kings have a lot of talent this year. So do the Grizzlies, so do the Mavs, so do the Suns. All these teams have a lot of talent. So it's going to be a grind in the West this year to see who is going to win. I think the Warriors will, but look, the Warriors could make it to the NBA Finals, having gone through the hardest Western Conference playoffs in the history of the NBA, through an entire West that is arguably the best also in the history of the NBA, and they might be going against a fresh Celtics team with an easy pass to the NBA Finals. Who knows, people? Maybe the Warriors run out of gas this year. I still think they win the Finals, but it's a question that we have to start asking.